Okay, so after every one of these, we should have a debrief, obviously, if we're gonna give him the recording. We don't want it on the debrief on the same one. Not that it'd be bad, but anyways. So first off, Kenny, excellent work on doing a great X-ray interview. So super on that. You did great. Excellent on getting it scheduled right away. And
Yeah,
so,
that was one concern I had. Is the other option we were looking at was a week from today or
gotcha.
yesterday,
Yeah.
Friday. So
So great work on that.
it
Sooner is better than later. Like the sooner you can get a review where it's still in their mind. Every day when they go through the X-ray, there's a lot of guilt, a lot of like, wow, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. So there's a lot of it. So he's ready, he's much more ready. So that's really good. Awesome that you did it. Obvious. So I doubt that anybody gave you the written instructions on what I went through. Are you are you aware of those?
I've seen it before, yes.
So the first time you often listen to the X-ray review, you just listen
Mm-hmm.
and you just like, this is not the first time Mark's done the, the review. Like, wow. The second time you're less impressed, the third time even less, the fourth, every time you listen to a review, you're like, huh, he has a system, a process he goes through. As a matter of fact, not only does he go through the X-ray in a very specific way, but his voice and his tone is very similar, but he does have nuances based on the personality. So it's really like I've been doing this for over 30 years, and it's like it seems like it's not even work for Mark. Like it seems like it's it's like fun. It's like it's like it's like cool. How do you enjoy something, for 30 years and still everyone is new and everyone's fresh? Like I'm sure Rosanna won't be listening to this, but there probably are other people that will be listening that will report back to Rosanna. I'm not saying it's like a marriage, like 39 years of marriage, and man, I still enjoy her immensely. Like, man, is she fun?
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. So I'm not saying it's like that, but it's like you're helping somebody that's potentially struggled with 10, 20 years and he hasn't been able to do it. And we are able to. Now, you might be thinking, Mark, is this normally how it goes? Often not. In the English world, especially not. The Amish, it takes me about 8 more minutes to do something. So it takes me about 20% longer to do something in the Amish than it does the English. I do say a lot in the English. Does this make sense? Are you tracking in this and this and this? So I do that, but I go a lot slower in the Amish, a lot slower.
Mm-hmm.
And I give a lot more room in between. So that room adds up. So what takes me 28 to 32 minutes in an English X-ray review takes me 40 minutes in an Amish.
Yeah.
That last half an hour, so I hit it right at 30 minutes. So it's weird. It's like, man, this guy's got this thing down to a system. It's kind of like, being at the factory where you just sit in awe when you're looking down and seeing how it starts out with a vase and then all of a sudden end of the day, all of a sudden there's this, RV. Like everybody knows there's the science. When you're learning this, do not be intimidated by what I do. Do not think you can never do this. Do not think it's going to take you years to do it. And do not think you have to do it like I do it. They've never heard me do it, so they have nothing to compare it to. So trust me when I tell you, they'll think it's awesome. They just will. Like you might not because you're comparing yourself to me. And it's okay, but they're not doing that. You could actually, believe it or not, and probably very few of you will, but you could actually do a better job than I do. And so, how is that possible? You won't have the confidence I have. One of my executive assistants, um, when I was training her how to do it, I was doing a review and I literally fell asleep. I was pretty tired. She was sitting beside me and she saw me fall asleep. And when I fell asleep, I kept talking. And then I woke up about 2, 3 minutes later and she's just like, that's just weird. So because you're new, you're not going to be as confident. And so I try to give massive value, not $285. I'm giving tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of value. You might say, Mark, I think he was ready to buy. I think he could have bought. He asked before you even got through. You didn't even get to the last question. The last question that I asked, typically at 32 minutes into it. Seriously, I've got this thing down. It's a machine. So 32 minutes, I say, so, Joe, do you have any questions on anything that we went over? It could be on the, 3 dimensions, 9 major areas, 7 systems. It could be on the 40 areas of your business and life. It could be on the 4 phases, your personality, what you're doing right or not, or what the next step is. Any questions? And it doesn't matter really what I say in the between. What matters is what's the next step? It's the last thing. Do you have any questions? And I list through everything we went through, just like I did when I sold them. When I sold them, I went ahead and said what the business x-ray will do is it'll look at 3 dimensions, 9 major areas, 7 systems, 40 areas of business and life, looks at what you're doing right, little tweaks that you could do to improve. It looks at the 4 phases and how it goes ahead. And normally it takes 15 to 25 years to get through it. Shows how to get through it in 2 to 4 years. So exactly what I sold them is the very end of what I tell them I just delivered. Do you have any questions on those? And it's overwhelming. And I say it fast purposely. And then I say, or what the next step is. Normally, that's what I get to. He jumped ahead and he says, what's the next step? You can't tell me that. I'm not ready to ask you that question. He jumped ahead because it was flowing so well. And you see how I used his name a lot. Myron. So I used his name a lot. How to win friends and influence people is you use their name and it builds a subconscious rapport. And then I said the next step and the next step and the next step. So what does a child, what does a toddler want? What does a person want more than anything else from birth to death? It's what they can't have. You put a toddler in the room with 100 toys and one other toddler, the toddler wants what the other toddler has. This is just human nature, doesn't change. So by me saying, I'm not ready, what I'm doing is building rapport, especially when you go across cultures. So I'm a white male over 50. When I say going across cultures, it's not just going into the Amish, it's going into the Black, it's going into the, Hispanic, the Latino, it's going into, younger people in their 20s and 30s. By and large, they're not going to trust me, but there's a hypnotic voice and tone and everything's flowing. And so they will. So normally you close when you can. And I could have closed then, but because I lost that 8 minutes, I didn't want to try it. And because, I think he's got the money because he's working in the factory and he's also got the business. So I think he's got the money. I think he has the ability. The 3 things that are required for a sale to happen is the decision maker, but I don't know if his wife is going to be involved. But now that I have it recorded, she can listen to it. So even if he's made a lot of stupid decisions in the past and his wife doesn't trust him, when she hears me in the review, she'll trust me. She'll say, this is different. We've never experienced anything like this. Now, he hasn't had coaching, so my guess is there's a lot of negative feeling towards it. But if they've had coaching, it can be harder to sell them on coaching if they've had it in the past, because they have a perception. And if the wife is against it, the husband won't do it. So number one, that you have to memorize these things in this order. Are they the decision maker? Number two is, do they have the ability to invest into the solution? It's not a problem if they can't afford to invest into Action Vision, because there's a lot of other solutions. So there's things that they can do. Number three is going to be the sense of urgency. So what's the sense of urgency? This is why highlighting and showing them their potential, showing them it's massive amount of pain, but with that pain comes hope. So this is why it depends. It ranges anywhere from a third of the people who do business X-ray on the low side will convert into Action Vision, all the way up to 60 or 70%. So it's not hard to get you get their biggest challenge. It's not hard to get a 30-minute strategy session because it's free. Once you do a 30-minute strategy session, it's not hard to get the business X-ray. It's only $285. And then we almost forgot to charge them for it. Like, to say something. Like, it's not about the 285. If they get a lot of value from it, then all of a sudden they see the value. They're like, holy cow, this is it. Now, the business X-ray is a new tool. And so I'm like, I'm not, and then we got to get the pricing. So he's got to go over the pricing. He's got to go over the pricing. And ideally, that's in presentation. So, I might have been able to go through that, but then that might have created a disconnect. Like, he's saying, I'm not ready. So he's got to be educated in it. There's the business. So we don't really explain that. So maybe Kenny will go ahead and bug me, or Elaine, or Cheryl, or Mel. I don't know that we can get Luke to go ahead and watch this. But one of you can bug me. I need to go in and I need to go ahead and explain. I need to put in writing how the pricing works. So the business X-ray workbook is designed, if you don't close them right here and right now, the business X-ray workbook will walk them through and build more rapport, give them more value. We are not afraid of giving them, too much intellectual property where we're going to run out and we don't have anything more to sell them. We're not afraid of that. We're just not. And so the whole system is designed to go ahead. And so if this was an English person, probably I'd have closed them right there on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
28 to 32 minutes, and then 28 to 32 minutes to go ahead and answer any questions, explain the pricing, and say, what would you like our next step to be? And they'll say, well, let's do this, or I need to study it, or whatever it is. So again, it's like an artist. It's like an artist. And so it's not hard to ask people their biggest challenge. It's really not. But it is, right? It's not really that hard to do a 30-minute strategy session. It's 3 minutes, 11 minutes, and then 16 minutes. It's really not hard at all to do a business X-ray interview, but there's a lot of small pieces you have to pay attention to. And it's really not that hard. If you guys think learning how to do this is hard, try figuring it out when you have a blank sheet of paper. So the history of the X-ray came because the Action Vision sales were taking 6 months to sell. And so I'm like, I need to create a product or service that will shorten that cycle. So I created the business X-ray probably 30 years ago, maybe more. Hasn't changed much at all since then. And so I created this from scratch. What am I thinking, and how can I teach them to see what I'm seeing faster? And so now this is why you can make so much money as an LP so fast. You get biggest challenge, somebody also do the 30-minute, you'll sit in and learn how to do the 30-minute. Once you learn how to do the 30-minute, you'll learn how to sell the x-ray. Until you learn how to sell the x-ray, somebody else will sell the x-ray. Once you learn how to sell the x-ray, you'll learn how to go ahead and do the x-ray interview. Once you learn how to do that, you'll learn how to do the x-ray review. Once you learn how to do that, then you'll go ahead and it's a machine and you can make a lot of money fast. Why? Because we can help people quickly and they see it. This is not like any other coaching program they've ever seen, ever. I mean, ever. There's not anything there. Everybody, their brother, sister, aunt, uncle, and cousin, and small child is doing business coaching these days. When we started it 33 years ago, almost nobody did it. We were one of the first. You can tell we've been doing it for 33 years. Like we are the premier. We know the science behind building this stuff, and people can see it. They can see quality in this, and that's why it's so successful. So don't get intimidated. It's really easy. You just take one step, do that step, and then somebody else will take the next step. You watch them do that next step, and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you'll be doing all of this. You might be saying, well, Mark, aren't you concerned that you'll become irrelevant? I'm not. Just there's so many other things that I could be doing. Hopefully, great work, Penny. Great work, Elaine. Excited for all of you guys to come together and learn this together. Always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.